Hi, I'm Renee Richel, the founder and president of One True Match. I'm here to help you find and cultivate the love of your life. For over a decade, I've dedicated my life to the importance, purpose, and dynamic of human relationships. My team and I are disciplined by faith, love, and integrity to help our clients find the quality relationship they've always dreamt of. Each week, I will be sharing the tools and tips I've learned that have rooted my success as a matchmaker with other leaders around the world. Hello, loves. Welcome back. We are so excited to be here together, live and in person. It's always the favorite, right? And chit chat about some of the things that matter most, of course. Yeah. And so, be it that Valentine's Day is just around the corner.
And I know a lot of people are scared by it or maybe afraid to be single.
Super excited, right? Super excited. They just met that person that we just introduced them to. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too, because it's important that you don't ruin it either on Valentine's Day, which could happen.
That's very true. Yeah, don't be too needy on Valentine's Day, you know?
Right.
The expectations need to be realistic.
Right, which is so true. So today what we're going to talk about is ways to make your profile stand out. And this does not mean just like an online profile.
Yeah.
Like you every day are a walking, talking billboard for your own profile, right? So it's so important that we talk about, you know, who you are and how that appears to people, which is basically your billboard profile.
Yeah, and I think that people don't truly think what they're doing when they either put themselves out there or when even creating a profile, we always say come to a matchmaker, but we understand people are online. Or even when you're filling out your profile for us, you know, we have our confidential database members that put truly think about what you're putting. I think so many people don't realize they're just like, yeah, I like to spend time with family. Okay, well, can you make that more exciting?
Right. Or they'll put like one or two things that, you know, like we always do say, of course, so we're talking to all gay, engaged, married, and single. So if you're single, if you're dating or you're married, you're probably going to be off of this whole conversation. However, though, it's important that you're always updating what I call your CV of life to be able to make sure that it's fun and fresh, right? Too. Yeah. So, you know, I picked up golfing. So when I was back in the market for a little bit or whatever there, and I was like, okay, I've got to what are my hobbies outside of my, you know, my child and my work and everything else. And I remember Connie and I were kind of talking about it, like we need to beef this up. And I was like, okay, I'll pick up golfing.
Beef it up. Exactly.
Beef it up, right? So we totally did. Like I went out to golf lessons and all these things. So, you know, maybe you've always been like, I want to go kayaking, or you want to do something. Like, don't wait till you have a mate to try something. I had Connie come along with me to go golfing, and she said she was great, which, let's be honest, I love you, but I don't really think you knew what you were doing. Supposedly you golf. But now she is clubs. So the point is,
I never said I was great.
We're keeping the topic, but the point is, it's so important to, you know, put things on there that are also exciting. You know, everybody hikes, everybody travels, you know, but
and if you put travel, put what travel looks like to you. I mean, travel looks like so many different
Some people
things.
want to stay stateside, other people want to travel worldwide.
Yeah, and if you hear, you know, someone say, "Oh, I love travel," I mean, that is a whole broad book. And some people really don't, like Renee just said, like only state to state. Some people have never international traveled, so they don't want to, or they're scared. And there's a lot of things that come with these hobbies, right?
Right.
So even with, you say, "Oh, I go hiking," and someone says tomorrow, "Oh, well, then let's go on a 10-mile hike," and you're like, "Whoa, I only hiked a mile." Like,
right, don't also fib and put things on there that you don't do, because then you'll just look foolish when you're actually on that date and they think that you know how to golf or do something you don't know how to do it.
All right, nice.
I'm kidding.
But no, it is true. I think so many people, or if you say you like to watch football, but you only like to watch your one team, you know, the other person's going to gauge off that and maybe take you on a date to watch football. I don't know. Don't really do that as a date, but just an example. You know, things like that, or going on a walk, like go into more detail.
Yeah, and I think the lazy way that we see often, and people are so in habit of doing that because, you know, the majority of the world only knows about online dating. Like so many people, I mean, we're ambassadors every day to remind or even teach people of the matchmaking world, you know, in that sense. And so, you know, the online world, it's like you fill out so many profiles, you've done it so many times, you're kind of just copying and pasting, and
it's really repetitive.
It literally is like searching for a job. So, you know, I mean, the world and the times have changed, obviously, since I was job seeking in that regards. But I feel like every job back in the day, I got old school, old fashioned way, is I was knocking on a door, going in, handing in my resume, you know, like, hello, I want a job here. You do your research, you figure out who somebody is and all those other things. So, like, look at yourself as your own ambassador, obviously, that is, you know, God-fearing and, you know, driven to articulate this beauty that God wants you to be. And so how would you put together your CV? How would you put together, you know, your description of you? And it shouldn't be cookie cutter. It shouldn't be short answers. It shouldn't be like, well, this is going to be a waste of time anyhow. So like, let's just get somebody to click on it. And I just want to fill this out because at the end of the day, you know,
I want to be seen. But guess what? You're not as much seen if you're not standing out.
If you're not unique.
Yeah. Like
doing something that, you know, talks about a little bit that's funny, something that, you know, shares with you like who your testimony is. I know on our profile that people fill out, we're like, you know, who is your ideal match? Like, who is it that you're looking for, to really articulate in the way you use words? And trust me, everybody judge it. I am the worst at grammar, is not my skill set. And I always forgot my spelling book in school, maybe for a reason. And clearly that's why, but you know, we have spell check and all those other things. But anyways, the point is, if you're somebody that's not your strength, like double check it. Because I can't tell you how many times, like, before I send something, especially in business, like this is a big thing. I need to make sure that I don't look like an idiot and I don't not know what I'm doing in the sense of grammar. And so like, there's so many times people will just be like, well, they have terrible grammar, you know? And I mean,
or it's like nothing makes sense, right? When you're making, or say you're doing a dating profile, and I am bringing on online dating because that's something that everyone is mostly familiar with. And so although we say use a matchmaker, there is going to be people who use online dating. Like, don't just make it in 5 minutes. It should be something that you've truly thought through and truly put effort into, like, making this profile, whether it takes you 30 minutes, whether it takes you an hour. Get someone to proofread it. And it sounds ridiculous because maybe it's just an online dating, and I do get that, right? But don't make yourself look a fool, because then if you, and I always say this, especially to the matchmaking world, so people will come to us, and this is probably a kind of funny client story, but in a kind way, is that you know, there'll be people that, you know, I'm searching, or I've interviewed, or I've met them at a restaurant, or so on and so forth, and then I will type in their name on Google, and guess who comes up on Tinder first thing? It's them. And it's like, okay, great, you know, that's your way of getting out there. Maybe you didn't know about a matchmaker. Like we said, we understand people are still on dating apps, but then I look on it and their profile is terrible pictures, an absolute botched version of a bio, and it's like, okay, so you're a really great person, but why would you put that out there? Like, it shows some kind of almost respect for yourself, of the way you talk about yourself. Like, if you're just like, oh yeah, just want to hang out with someone. Like, if you're looking for your wife and you put that on your online dating profile, they don't correspond.
Right. And I mean, and it always bothers me how judgmental people are of the littlest thing on a photo. And I completely get it, because at the end of the day, if you're not attracted to somebody right out of the gate, you're going to dismiss them and you're going to move on. If they're not the right height, or they're not the right makeup, or they're not the right, but I can't tell you how many times the blessing of what we do on a daily basis is we truly get to know somebody for who they are off the profile.
Yes.
But the way that a profile even gets looked at,
and we wish it wasn't the case, right?
We totally wish it wasn't. But, you know, like, at the end of the day, you know, it is important that you're putting your best foot forward, that you're, you know, representing yourself with unfiltered photos, but like also putting in the time to do your hair and makeup for women, or like for men, like, you know, put on something more than a t-shirt. And the selfies, people are so concerned that, like, they're then vain. And it's like, we're in a weird world in today's day and age where it's like, you have to, you know, take selfies these days, and people want to see your face. So like, how else are you going to do it, especially if you're single and nobody else is there to take a photo of the two of you? And like, you're thinking you're marketing yourself, which you are in today's day and age. In our business, we have to do that clearly too. So we've gone to video, clearly. But like, it is only just because you're also connecting to somebody where it's so important, like that photo really shows who you are as a person. So if you're putting out lazy kind of photos, you're gonna get lazy kind of people.
And it only has to be simple, right? I mean, it's simple as set up your camera on a decent angle on your windowsill. I always say the light's perfect. There's normally a good height. And just take
let the light shine into you and not be behind you.
Yes, that is key. And just take a simple photo of yourself. Like, and guys, we encourage this. Women tend to be more, take pictures with their friends. They tend to have better photos. I won't say all, but they tend. And some guys will just post a photo or say, "Oh, can I have some photos of you? Here's me in this big fish." Like, why do you want to put that up there? Like, yes, if this person likes to go fishing, I understand, but honestly, the simpler the better, especially for a lot of men's photos particular.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying also. Take fresh photos that aren't already on the global web.
Because once you have one photo
out on social media and then you put it up into a profile or even any of ours, then everybody knows you can do the reverse photo, search, and you can find somebody. And so so many times, people will say, "Oh my gosh, well, that's why I got off online dating, because then people were stalking me and finding me and everything else." Well, I mean, one thing to protect your identity and to also just be unique is to have a different photo. So it's not something, I mean, everybody knows whatever you put out there, the web is already searching for it. They're like little crawlers out there looking for it. You know what I mean? And so you're subjecting yourself to being in that scenario. So I think, what we basically are saying is have that wow factor when somebody sees your profile. Don't be lazy about it. Put in the time. I mean, anything we do in life we're successful at is because we've put in the effort.
Literally. It's simple, but
and read it back. Would you be wanting to click on your own profile? Is this something that's interesting? And I think for, in our case where people are filling out profiles. So also, if you are single and you've never filled out a profile and you're listening to this for the first time, go on our website, onetruematch.com, truematch.com, and submit a profile. Yeah. We don't know you exist. Yeah. I do think too, and I don't want to get off the topic of obviously standing out, but I think part of it for us, because we'll get people that'll call us and say, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah.
So the reality of it is, we have a huge network, as I call it, database of individuals. And our clients who we work with less amount of clients so that we can, a lower number of clients so that we can have one-on-one relationships with them to able to really obviously search for them. They are very specific in what they're not just looking for, but also how their answers come across and who they're looking for as well.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really important just when you think, well, no one's going to see it, it's only the matchmakers. And I always do tell everybody when we're doing a video call checkout, people are like, for some women, they're like, "Oh, I just did a facial." And I'm like, well, that's great. I want to see you at your raw element. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because unless you're completely don't look anything like your photo, there's nothing better than that. So we want you to impress us, but we also want you to be genuine and real, because ultimately when a relationship starts, people are going to see that real side of you.
Yeah, and that's when you want to stand out in your profile, and you want to make sure that you stand out compared to others, that you present yourself well, but you also don't want to go the opposite way, because in today's nowadays, that's the word I'm going for. So many people then put this fake profile of them, someone that they don't do, pictures that look nothing like them, edited, don't put them up there.
And then you just wonder why it never turns into something more, because they were so edited.
Exactly. And you want to stand out, but you want to stand out in a positive light and not negative. You don't want to go on that day and they be like, "Whoa, they do not look like you," that's, not shameless plug once again, but that's why you hire a matchmaker, to make sure that that's who you're truly going out with. But if you are still online dating and you put all these photos of you all edited and you go out and, women tend to do this. Guess I'm targeting our women here. But if you tend to do it, just do it a little less editing, just keep it more natural, or just have better lighting. Maybe forget the editing, but stand in a better light, to make you feel more confident. It's the smallest things that make your profile stand out, but you also want to be realistic too.
Right. And you also want to be classy, but also sexy in a way that you're not looking like, I know Connie and I had this conversation because I was like a mom, and like you start going through this phase, and then it's like you're putting yourself back on and it's like, okay, we need to go shopping. I'm like, what's wrong with it? Because obviously, like, I'm like, I feel like I have good fashion, but you kind of get into this comfortable zone, especially I'm talking to all the, single moms out there or whatever. But, you go through this phase of like, well, someone, I want them to love me for me. And truly, we do want it. That is that. But it's also part of attracting a mate, is also part of that. So, sometimes people are like, well, I don't really know. I'm like, Google it. I mean, I feel like we've done a podcast on this, but again, like you have to have, whether it be a pop of a color, because the other thing too is like we do surveying all day long on this like whole thing of like, what are people clicking on? What are they looking for? What is their like main reason they click on a profile? It's usually the message and the words, or it's in the photos of what captivated their attention. So, one thing is like, I mean, right now, it's like Valentine's Day, we're both wearing pink. It's like that pop color, right? Or whatever. But that will stand out. I mean, think about it. In a sea of profiles and a sea of people, that will really help you to stand out off the page. When typically it's like, black is slimming and looks great on everybody. But when you're thinking about a ton of profiles out there, a ton of like that whole resume of your life, it's got to be attractive. And I think to talk on, because it is around Valentine's Day, and for any of our couples listening, and I know we have a lot of our married folks and just other individuals that do listen to this podcast as well, is that it's so important that you also put in the effort. Maybe you're like, it's just Valentine's Day, I don't want to go out, and we go out all the time, or we don't go out enough, or he's just doing it because it's Valentine's Day, or I feel like we should go out. And with that attitude, and without putting a little bit of spice on it, maybe that's why the marriage and the relationship is starting to head a little south. So it's so important that you're continuously, upping your profile, keeping it current, however you want to word it, even married. And it's not for anybody else, it's for your mate, obviously, when married, that you just stay youthfully fresh, beautiful, fresh, attractive in the best way God has designed you to be. And, and I think that that's just something that's a model that should carry out all year round, not just on not just the Hallmark holiday of Valentine's Day.
But if you're single, do something for you, right? Go back to your profiles, make yourself stand out, or take yourself to dinner, go out with friends. Like, you might think it sounds ridiculous, but just think of it as a day for love for yourself. And if you're in a relationship or married or dating someone, then try, stand out a little bit more on that day. Or, like Renee said, just spice up your life a little bit.
I mean, everybody that's listened to us, because we've been doing this over a year, which is so exciting. So last Valentine's Day, which I feel like I'll always forever share this, is I was not last Valentine's Day, but whatever. Anyways, years ago when I just moved to North Florida and didn't know anybody, and it was around Valentine's Day. Some of you heard this, some of you not. I was like, okay, I need to meet people. And so I just put a little invitation on neighbors' doors, and so I had like literally a Valentine's Day kind of share stories with like neighbors and stuff like that. It was like pizza, because I was like, I don't want to be alone on Valentine's Day. So my whole thing is I don't like to do things alone. So I'm like, oh, we'll just get a village. We'll get a bunch of people. Like, make it into something. Make Valentine's Day into an event. Make it into something more, so that you're not feeling lonely on that holiday, that you don't have that person. Because I promise you'll walk away that much more enriched in the fellowship that God brings you through the people that he connects you to at the right time. And that's what leads couples into the right person. By being negative, by getting down on your luck, by like feeling like, woe is me, it's never going to happen.
And if you spend Valentine's Day just crying or sad and just doubting yourself, where is that going to get you? And I think that's the one thing that we should always think is, where are these thoughts going to get me? It's making me sad, thinking that I'm a failure in dating life. What is the good in that? And absolutely none.
The only person you're failing, which should be the number one love of your life, truly, is God. So, the reality of it is every day we should have a positive spirit. With every sunrise, it's a new day. With every sunset, it's the close of a day. And the reality of it is, if you haven't filled your entire love tank with God, seriously, because I used to live away way before, like, obviously now I'm so strong in my faith, but like, I used to live very selfish, sad, not pathetic, sorry, I don't mean to say that word, but like, because I was like pitifully pathetic, that I was like, sad because I didn't have that joy inside of me. And the reality of it is because I didn't fill up my love tank with Jesus, and I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is the best love that I've ever felt in my life. And for that reason, I will never feel lonely. I will never feel scared or sad or fear of anything. And I think during that time of Valentine's Day, if you aren't with other people and just you are like, use that time to be in love with Jesus. Like, use that time to just fill your heart, and then go to your computer and go, of course, to onetruematch.com and fill out a profile and write in, who you are, like through God's eyes, and let your, fingers, your mind, whatever, speak to that, write it down, whatever your best way of doing that, and articulate that. Absolutely. And think about how your profile looks at any phase of dating to anybody, to your mate, to your future mate, to your anyone, and think, is my life a profile, a CV that stands out?
Yeah, and I always say, like, send us an email. Like, hey, is there anything you need more for my profile? There's so many that come in that we might not get right back to it straight away. But if there's a question that you're like, hey, I want to stand out, I want to stand out. I'm really ready, and this is kind of what I've been called to do, is then give us an email and say, hey, even if it's just for your own self, is there any recommendations that you should do for my profile? And it sounds silly, but you'll learn something whether your profile needs more work or not work at all. But just make sure that you're standing out and doing it mindfully, or get someone else to also check your profile. It sounds cringe and you don't want to have other people check your profile, but that's how we get more comfortable, right? Ask a friend, see what they think of it.
Yeah, and I think one thing that cracks me up every time when we get feedback from people and we hear that nobody talked about their faith, and we're like, okay, between politics and faith and like just values in life, that's the one thing we have interviewed for. Please talk about that. Share your testimony, share your story, because I think when people hear that we ask those questions, that's when we're like, oh my gosh, we fell in love with their heart.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need to know if somebody else is a Christian. Obviously, like through our connections, it's like, it's so funny how everybody gets into that quick habit of interviewing. And it's like obviously, obviously it's just a natural thing to be like, oh, where are you from? Like just trying to connect, making light talk or whatever. But then I always
think it's okay, but
it is. But then also dive into like the soul of their testimony, because you already know two people are a Christian, and obviously if you are online and you're out there, like the reality of it is you probably already had found out if they're a Christian.
Yeah, or make it clearer, right?
If that's really obviously important to you.
Yeah, if that's important to you and it is on your online dating profile, like I said, we want you to come to One True Match and do our profile. But if you are online dating and doing it separately, or whatever you may be doing, is make it very clear your morals and your standpoints, because then you aren't going to waste time. And I think that's the most important part when it comes to making your profile stand out, is do not waste your own time. All of our time is so valuable. So be mindful what goes out there, because that's exactly who you're going to attract.
Which is so true. So I hope you have found this very valuable, because obviously we always get that little red light. We have to, carry on. But the point is I hope, this Valentine's Day, you spend time in love with the right person. You fill out a profile, obviously, on our website, so that we know you exist. We are global, which is so exciting, how many more hearts we're able to match all around the globe. And so you just never know, but make your profile stand out so that you're noticed for our clients that are just such incredible souls that are also looking for the right person as well. And we also hope that you have a holiday full of joy and love, and a year to come. And today is not just the only day. You should be doing this and practicing every day.
Absolutely. Well, treat yourself this Valentine's Day. All right.
Bye. Love and love you. Bye.
Bye.
It's been another great talk on this episode of One True Talks by Renee Richel. I look forward to our next chat. Please write in your questions and comments so I can be sure to talk about whatever it is you want to discuss in our next upcoming episode. Lots of love. God bless. XOXO.